What a long, strange trip it's been. I'll be honest, it's probably been 2 years since I picked up something I knew wasn't going to be viable without certain equipment. Glacial Hammer is one of these skills, and since we're sauntering on down to the finish line, let's go over some of what I didn't have that would have made things much more manageable, if not straight out good. The big one is not Frost Breath. Frost Breath is pretty good, especially with the new trauma support. Maybe even better than what I'm about to say. I haven't run the numbers on this, but I know that there's another unique that kind of comes to mind first with a skill that's constantly freezing people. I'd probably have gone champion if I was doing the Frost Breath trauma stuff, but it's solo self-found. There's no guarantee you'll get a Frost Breath, and rightly so, I did not receive one. I thought I did. I'd actually received a Bright Beak, which apparently also does good trauma things because attack speed is good. Who'd have thought? No, the big one is Heat Shiver, which I also never got. For a build so focused on freezing, 100% of cold damage added as fire would have been massive. Unbelievably so, even. More on that later, though. I never got the good weapon I'd hoped for, either by crafting or through Katarina's Cane of Kulamak. I just got some decent equipment, though, and honestly, it says some pretty optimistic things about Glacial Hammer in general, that it was able to confidently step over the finish line with what I did have. We start with some T16s, the first ones I ever did. We ended up doing a fair amount of them by the time I was juggling voidstones, but even at these earliest few, you can see that the build honestly did just fine, especially in regards to clear speed. Strike skills, despite all convention of being a melee skill you have to get in someone's face with, they actually clear really well. Glacial Hammer should be among the worst, with things like Bone Shatter and Infernal Blow aggressively outclassing it, and with Heavy Strike being good company, it's easy to see why I wasn't optimistic. Glacial Hammer does have the 33% Super Coal, though, which gets very noticeable around tanky rares. What do I got over here? Just a straight up Divine Orb, not bad. I pick up some Divines on the way for highlights, and I land on level 93 to lessen the impact of any upcoming deaths.
Yay.
On the way, I start cleaning up some of my more worthy stuff to run, looking for any useful bits and baubles to help me along as I go. I'm just looking for either a Coward's Trial map or better gear. Coward's Trial was important because with prefixes cannot be changed, I had a really good chance of getting a major weapon upgrade before going into the pinnacle fights and making them that much easier. I never got it to drop, though, but I did get a Divine drop, and these... Yo! Maybe I build that next. Shit, man, if it's gonna give me the fucking gloves and everything. Highlights aside, I was approaching the summit of this very long, very drawn-out hike to the pinnacle bosses. I knocked out a couple T16s to get my keys, and then hopped right in. Eater of Worlds was first, and I have a lot of experience with this boss. Oh, spawned under me. That's rude. I almost didn't even take the boss seriously, because I've done it so often. It's a great fight, because it's always clear what's going on, and there's no fuckery with your perspective at work. You'll see what I mean by that when I get all salty in the Exarch fight in a moment. On a happy little highlight note, I got a negative for melding, which was 2 div at the time of price check, so not bad. This fight is gonna whoop my ass, but I don't know. Maybe it won't be that bad.
Your absurd defiance ends here, hatchling.
The Atlas must remain mine.
Annihilation. Annihilation. Incineration.
Oh. I almost jumped into that too soon. I thought he was done already.
You do not have the strength, hatchling.
That may be, but I am not alone.
How pathetic.
Ooh. Ow.
Disintegration. Cleansing. The fires of 1,000 suns.
Ah. Come on, dude. I'm not gonna lie. I think I'd have an easier time with that if the camera were zoomed in, because it fucks up my movement. It really does. I can't be the only one who feels that way.
Disintegration. Cleansing. Annihilation. The fires of 1,000 suns.
I'm dead. Jesus Christ, I hate this fight.
Annihilation. Disintegration.
Ah, he turned.
Annihilation. Incineration. Annihilation.
Ah,
Until the others are
Surprises.
as well.
that could have been deathless. It's over though.
The
Searing Exarch is easily the difficult boss for me. Shouldn't be. I'm actually pretty good at mechanically challenging things like the balls phase, but I'm not used to it, and I've never had an excuse to farm the boss at length, like I have for Ashes of the Stars from Eater. So when I get to the balls phase and the camera zooms out, I get a little confused. That's on me, though. I understand that. The weight off my shoulders was palpable in this moment. I felt severely relieved, because as capable as Glacial Hammer turned out to be, that inescapable feeling that I was hobbling along at a fraction of the speed I would be on a more capable League Start skill was constantly evident. There was some points in the middle of mapping where I was genuinely enjoying playing, and getting things like my 6th link or good weapons and those quality of life boosts like a second +1 strike target were really impactful and felt great. If I wanted this experience again though, I'd probably just play Infernal Blow. It's just a better skill overall for this sort of thing, and unless you have all the tech and gear lined up for Glacial Hammer in advance, you're really only hamstringing yourself by picking it specifically. Looking back, I find myself with more good things to say about Glacial Hammer than bad. It cleared well, actually. It really did. Strike skills surprise in that way, although with really intense gear investment, they will always fall off in a major way compared to ranged attack skills, like Tornado Shot, Lightning Arrow, Spectral Shield Throw. You're probably thinking, oh, those were the quest versions of the boss. You would never know. My gear was trash. My defenses are due for rework now that I've got some levels and understanding of what the build needs. My weapon could very easily be 25% more damage than it is currently. The non-quest versions of these bosses would be fine, and I'd probably get most or all of these upgrades just running the maps to get to them for the first time. At the end of the day, Glacial Hammer is carried by the novelty of the bonk. If it weren't so much fun to just clobber the shit out of people while they're forced to stand still, I probably wouldn't have made it. The shatter sounds of frozen enemies help sell this really well, and it's easily the most enjoyable part of the build. You always kind of feel like it shouldn't be working, and then you move on to something harder, and it all just kind of does. It never really seems to suffer from the things that are holding it up. What it does suffer from is never really being smooth. Everything is always so tight, you're always wishing you had a little bit more of everything. And it doesn't give you the proper wiggle room that a real League Start skill does. Glacial Hammer just needs so damn much to function well, and it's in the form of very specific items that benefit certain methods of cold scaling. When I look at Glacial Hammer, I'm forced to consider Explosive Arrow. Why? Because Explosive Arrow, for a long time, really needed Deity and Dawn to shine. It still wants it, but it got buffs to make it stronger because the skill wasn't used, and it got those buffs because it was an underused level 28 skill. GGG, in my experience, has a bad habit of treating low-level skills as something that can be ignored, which is often why a lot of strike skills, I think, are in a poor state. They're simple for new players to learn the game, so it's okay for them to be weak or something. I don't agree with it, but I feel that's how they rationalize why skills with certain deficiencies get buffed and others are just left to rot in obscurity. That begs the question, though, now that we're at the end, how would we make Glacial Hammer better? How do we enhance this skill at all levels in a way that doesn't require us to nerf certain interactions or leave it in a state that's completely overpowered even? Honestly, it probably needs to do about 20% more damage. Yep, that's it. It's not far behind, which is the most illuminating detail of all of this. With that bit of extra damage, you have the room to take care of other things on the character. And as far as I know, Glacial Hammer isn't exactly tearing up the top end with high investment. It's just existing. Having it be a bit more comfortable up there isn't going to hurt the game's build ecosystem. At least I don't think so. Rightly so, you could probably apply a lot of these concepts to, say, Heavy Strike as well. Also help that skill do better. They just deserve to be a little stronger to make up for the other shortcomings in the skill. And that's kind of the whole thing about Glacial Hammer and the lessons it gives us as people playing the game. A simple skill needs to be strong in an upfront way, and then have its exemplary scaling locked behind certain equipment. Glacial Hammer, and a lot of other skills like it, are missing that generically strong part, though. They're stretched thin, and that makes them feel a lot weaker than they are in a game that demands so much of a player's ability to balance defense and damage. Bastard viewers, it's been a hell of a trip. Glacial Hammer passes with a D+, because the bonk was fun up to a point, and that was enough to get me across the bare minimum finish line without hating myself. That's honestly pretty good for picking a unpopular skill like this. It doesn't get a higher grade because, quite frankly, I'm done with this skill, man. Maybe in a year I'll want to approach it and trade with a bigger budget and the knowledge I've gained, but for now, It's just this thing I'm happy to set down before it drives me nuts. Stay sane, Exiles, and don't start Glacial Hammer in solo Southbound. Not worth it, even if it can be done.